there are going to be plenty of conversations that we'll have that people don't actually know the process around the politics of changing the constitution, and they haven't been exposed to a referendum before. They've seen a plebiscite, so is that the same thing? They don't understand. So there's a bit of education that we will need to do around what is a referendum and why it's important that we all have our votes counted in it. We'll give you some specific language in a moment, but having to educate around from the starting at the beginning, what is a referendum and what is going to be a common one.
Yeah. And also one of the ones I can see that's coming up is enough detail. Okay, so what are the details of the change in the voice? We don't know what government's doing. We don't know, what this all means. Okay, that's a really beautiful, well, not beautiful, really tricky thing that what was the word that I wanted to use to describe them? Because they're not no supporters, they're no lobbyists. Okay, they're lobbyists for this. That's a good way to think about them. Think about the fact that they're lobbying for this. This is something that they're doing because often it'll be that they're lobbying for it. They're not engaged. They're not doing it because they think it's going to make a better world. They're doing it because they want to keep things the way that they are. Indigenous people don't all agree to the voice. That's another one that we have that's in there quite. Also, it will be divisive. I'm going to talk to how we deal with those objections. Okay, we're going to quickly run through this. Okay, we respond to it using two approaches. Number one, we use something called positive framing. It's really important. Okay, what we want to do is we want to not repeat the language of the no campaign. We want to use positive framing and positive language. Okay, we don't want to repeat their talking points for them. That's really important. We have to be positive. People don't necessarily remember the content, but they remember whether something's linked to be positive or negative in their mind. So for example, one of the things that we saw in the chat was the voice will be divisive. I don't want you to say the voice will not be divisive. It'll be a case of the voice is an opportunity to bring us together. Okay, opportunity, positive, together, positive. Okay, we're reframing it into a positive way. Now, there's a 3-step way that we are going to teach you to respond to these negative campaign things. And we've just lost the lights in the thing. All right, so in the spooky glow, okay, the first thing that we want you to do is we want you to affirm what they're saying. I'm not saying you have to agree with them. I'm definitely not saying that you have, someone says, oh yeah, someone says it's going to be divisive. I don't want you to say, yeah, it is going to be divisive. That's not what I want you to say. That's not what the affirmation is about. You're saying, well, I can understand why you would think that way. Okay, so, oh, there we go, we're back. Okay, so it's about letting the person know that they're being listened to. We're not just dismissing them out of hand. Okay, I see what you mean. So for example, the objection that we don't know what it's about, there's not enough detail. Okay, I see what you mean. The community should always be educated and informed about these things. Okay, education is powerful and details are important. Okay, we're affirming that. The next step is to answer their objection. So people saying there's not enough detail. Okay, the Constitution provides the rules for Australia, not the operational details of how the system works. When Australia established the High Court, they were not deciding on specifics of the court. They simply put in the Constitution that Australia should have a High Court. The High Court was established in the Constitution and Parliament has the power to figure out how the court works. But only the Australian people have the power to alter or disband the court. The voice will work in the same way, and that makes sense. We live in a representative democracy. We we vote for people to represent us and our views. This is what they do. Okay, that's why the system is. Now, in the Constitution, it doesn't say that the top judge of the High Court will have a corner office and will be able to have shandies for lunch, and he will deal with 27 cases in a week. It doesn't go into detail. It just says the Australian Constitution, we will establish a High Court for Australia. And then they work out the details afterwards. Okay, so you've answered their problem. And now we're moving on to the next step, which is redirect. So what do you think? Should Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples have a meaningful say in the laws that affect them? Okay, we're redirecting them. You've answered there. You've said, yeah, I hear what you're saying. I'm listening to you. I'm not dismissing you out of hand. I've given you an answer. But what do you think? Okay, getting them to actually think about it. Redirecting them to a place where they can actually start to kind of think, well, hang on, yeah, I would expect that people should be able to have a meaningful say in the laws that affect them. Absolutely. Okay. And those 3 steps, affirm, answer, redirect, are all ways that you can deal with people's negative opinions. If you're in a conversation and someone raises too many objections, politely exit the conversation and move on. Okay, they're trying to soak up your time. We're interested if they've got maybe 1 or 2 objections, that's fine, you can deal with that. But as soon as it gets to be a little bit more, thanks, you're a bit too hard work, you're in that hard no category, and we're not interested in wasting our time on you. Not in, obviously, saying it in a positive way. Well, that's a shame. I can't really help you with that. I hope you have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much for your time. Take care. Negation is when we say what we are not rather than what we are. A lot of the discussions and a lot of the presentations and a lot of the talk that's been going on around this has been, unfortunately, using negative framing, negation. Okay, I'm not that. I'm not that. We want to change when we're having our conversations with people. We want to use positive framing. People remember word association. Okay, if I, for example, Humpty Dumpty, egg. Okay, those associations are in people's minds, even though it doesn't say anywhere in Humpty Dumpty that he was an egg. I'm going to leave that with you. Read it, think about it. It doesn't say what he is. It's just that association is there in your mind. Okay, so we want to take care and use that step 2. We say Aboriginal families take care of each other. We're linking Aboriginal families and we're linking caring for each other. We're using a positive frame. We avoid using the no lobbyists language or their framing because it reinforces a negative frame, relies on stereotypes and relies on those negative things that unfortunately have been part of Australian culture. Now I'm going to pass over to Pip, who's going to be talking to you about how we persuade these people.
When we address some of these questions and comments against the yes from a values perspective, you'll see that we can most definitely turn people's thinkings around. So this is the 4 V's framework. We've got value, villain, victory, and vision. So what we want to do is think about our own values. What is it that is important to us, and why it's going to make a difference in this conversation. So if you're on the side of yes, it can be fairly certain that you will have a shared universal value of fairness, respect, equity, equality. Those are probably values that are important to you as a person, and we share those values with others, and that's how society is created. So if you identify the value that has attracted you to supporting this campaign, you'll always have something in your pocket to be able to come back and counter a lot of the arguments that you hear. So starting with value, I value fairness. I believe we all have a responsibility to fairness. Even racist Uncle Bob, he thinks things should be fair. Great. We've got a shared base to start from. We're talking the same language. We can continue this conversation. But it doesn't have to be highfalutin. Australians believe in a fair go. I'm sure everyone here has heard that 1,000 times. I believe in a fair go. My neighbour believes in a fair go. The 93-year-old across the street believes in a fair go. Great. We can have a conversation. We can engage this person. We can turn their mind around. We can persuade the persuadables. But there's a villain. We want to keep things positive, so we're not going to name and shame individuals. We're going to instead find the root cause, the root villain. So I believe in fairness, but Australia's history hasn't reflected fairness in its laws for all people. So my villain in my statement here is Australia, historic Australia, up until now. And I'm not saying one government over the other, because over our history, we all know everyone's done things that could be done better. So I'm choosing the villain being our historic governments that haven't reflected this. So be specific about that, what that barrier might be that is stopping the value that we share from going forward to making a positive difference. So you can see on the screen there that Phil's sharing, there's got some examples. Mining billionaires. We're not naming a certain mining billionaire. Mining billionaires. Past governments, successive governments. So be specific, but not identify a human that will sue you for libel. We don't need to go there. And then the third V, victory. What would a victory look like? Our Indigenous communities thrive when they're in control, when they're given a fair go at solving the problem themselves. COVID is a great example, as Professor Fiona Stanley told us, when Indigenous elders came together in community and said, this is what we need to do to stop COVID from spreading amongst our peoples, and took control, they had fantastic outcomes. And it's not just with COVID, we've seen that with education initiatives on country, and when given a chance to lead their own way, they've had fantastic outcomes. Our values, we've painted a villain. What would victory look like? And then the vision. So we are creating something together that's going to move us forward. So a we statement. I believe in fairness. Australian successive governments haven't provided a fair go for all. When Indigenous people are given a fair chance at leading in their own communities, they succeed. The vision, we now all together need to support that and move forward. And we can do that by voting yes. So we need to bring people on the journey with us as we're connecting through our values. Everyone loves a villain. We can paint all sorts of villains. We love victory, and we really want something that's going to give practical improvements for Aboriginal people. And this is exactly what the voice does, because when they're given a say in factors that affect them, they succeed and they make positive change. It can be a really short statement, or it can be a really long and detailed statement, depending on your company, who you're speaking with, how the conversation is going along. And it really, really does allow for connection with people. And that is how we are going to change people's minds and bring the persuadables on board. The way that 4 V's kind of flows, you end on something really positive and happy. The victory and the vision of moving forward together shows us that there's something positive and an action that we can make right now to move the whole country forward. And it's such a positive way of engaging people that I've done it quite a few times now with friends and family, and even someone in the elevator the other day.
I got a story to tell you. It's a good one. It's about how these people, the first people, got a voice.
60,000 years they've been speaking.
Had 363 languages.
But no voice. No say on matters which affected them. It wasn't right.
So, me and your granddad.
Me and your mum.
The whole nation did something about it. People called their friends and families. People talked about it on the streets, talked about it at work, on the field. Everybody made a song and dance about it.
Everyone walked side by side.
And that's how we changed this country for the better. How we made history.
Is that story true?
It could be.
Authorised by the Uluru Dialogue Sydney.